So Google Calendar is part of Google's app of suite of apps, and it's a really awesome tool. I'm sure that you're using it a bit, and I want to get you to use it more and see some of the features that you might not have realized were there. So first is the navigating. You can get to Google Calendar by the waffle, and you can just select the calendar, and that's a quick and easy way. And the waffle stays there too, so you can navigate to all of the other apps that Google offers. So it's really easy way to move between calendar and other apps. So the weekly view is the one that I typically use, but I wanted to show you all the different choices that you have. So there can be a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and there's something called schedule, and then I have a 5-day view. So that 5-day view you can set as your as one of the options in the settings, which we will eventually get to. But the schedule view I think is a little interesting, so you might not realize what that is. And that one just sort of says whatever you have booked for that day. So this is just an example of what it might look like if you have things scheduled. The monthly view I think is also really nice. I had defaulted before the rotating schedule for the school, so I always knew what day it was supposed to be on any particular day. And also assignments get put in here, so you can see like an assignment is due on this particular day. There was no school on this day. So anything that you have in Google Classroom will come through as assignments up at the top, and those are usually that's a non-time. So anything at the top like this, that means that there's not a time associated with it. Notice all these other things, there's a particular time associated with it, so it puts it as a dot, just so you notice the difference between an all-day activity and a scheduled activity. So the all days go at the top first. Okay, so how to navigate through. At any point in time, you can click the Today button, and that will get you back to the current day. There are these backwards and forwards buttons, so you can move ahead, and they move according to whatever you have as your time frame here. So if this said month and I clicked the arrow, it would move 1 month at a time. The weekly view would move me 1 week at a time. So the movement depends upon this as well. So now, if you wanted to schedule an event, what do you do? So this is when you're in Calendar on the left-hand side, you see that big Create button. It's very similar to all Google apps. They have that plus button, so we're familiar with that. And then this is the window that appears, and you can see that event is the default. So the first thing you do, I start from top and I go to the bottom. So you're going to add a title, you're naming your event, you're making it meaningful so that you look at it and you say, oh, that's what that is. So it should be a name that makes sense. So put that in there, make it meaningful. Then you're going to pick the time. So you can see here there's a date and a time, and then the ending time and date. So you can have it go through multiple days if you want. But just be careful when you're doing it to pay attention to the AM and PM. Sometimes I screw that up, so it's something that I hone in on, so I just want to make you aware of that. So adding guests, you can add attendees here, and depending upon what people's view options are, you can tell if they're busy or not. So we're going to get to that later on of how you can set your visibility if you want to share your calendar. So when you add guests, just so you know, when someone is invited, they're going to have something that appears in their calendar, and it's going to look like this. Whatever the name of the meeting is, however you titled it, it's going to look like this, and it's going to have the outside border on it, but it's going to have a white fill. So it's not going to be filled in yet, and that's just the invitation. Once someone accepts your invitation, then it's going to color in on their calendar, and it's whatever their default colors are for their calendar, so you don't get to decide what color it appears on someone else's calendar. This is a student's calendar that I have, and so this is their default colors, and they don't match mine. Mine happen to be purple. So once they accept it, you can tell that. And so if you ever see something on your calendar that looks like this, then you know it's an invitation. A lot of time the special ed invitations, when they go out, they look like this in your calendar until you accept. Okay, so now you can add conferencing. You guys are very familiar with this now, but remember, this type of conferencing is really best for adults and not for students, because this means anyone can join with a link. And so we don't want to use this option typically unless we have a smaller group of students that we're dealing with that we know we're inviting to the meeting. So I do use this sometimes, but I use it more cautiously. When I'm dealing with my entire class, I go right to Google Classroom. Then you can add rooms or locations. So the rooms are set up we're not going to be able to do the rooms, but when you click on that box, then you're going to be able to put a location in. So if you're going to an offsite meeting, then you can put an address in and it would help with, distance and things of that sort. So you can put that type of stuff in there. And then if you wanted, you could add a description. I skipped over that. And then at the very bottom, when you go to more options, then that's where you can change colors, you can repeat events, and you can make things all-day events. So those are the options there. And when you're done, you can click Save, and that will save. Now, appointments. Now that's a little bit different. I know some of you have signed up for appointments with me, and I like to use that. Now, a few people have asked me about adding appointments or learning how to do this for their students because they like to offer it up to their classes. So here you go for appointments. You still click the create button and the same box comes up. It still says the event, but you probably didn't notice that over here there's something called appointment slots. It's been there all the time, but you might not have seen it. And you're going to click on appointment slots, and when you do, it changes. This box is a little bit different, but now it's at the appointment slot setting. So same idea, you're going to add the title. So you're going to title your office hour slot. So whatever you want it to be called, mine usually say technology help. So whatever you'd like to do, you put it in there. And then you're going to pick the time range. So you can set it for a longer time range because you're going to put duration underneath. So each slot's going to be, but if you wanted to have like, let's say from this one just says the default is just for 1 hour, but you put whatever the beginning and ending time range you would like to have. And then the slots with duration. So you're saying like mine, I have usually 30-minute slots. And then if you want more time, then you can take 2 slots, or you can say I signed up for 30 minutes, but I'd like it to be longer. So that it can be adjusted in the Google Calendar afterwards. So that's not a big deal. And then more options for here is a little bit different. So you can see there's not the option to add the description here. So you'd have to go into more options to add a description. This is also where you would do the repeating events. So if you wanted to do it, so every single, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you want to do meetings, or maybe you want to do it every Monday till, for the next 5 weeks. So anything that you want to repeat, you would need to go to the more options as well. And then you also, to view your appointment page, so there is a link that you would give to people so that they can schedule appointments with you. And you need to go to more options to see that. And when you're done with everything, you're going to click Save. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So normally when you have something in your calendar, you don't see this little grid here. So this grid is what I wanted you to notice. And that means that you have an appointment slot. If you give the appointment slots, if you give someone your schedule, this is what it looks like to them. So they can't see what people have taken. So if a slot was removed, so if someone else has already booked it, there would just be a blank slot here. So they're only going to be able to see what they're able to book. And then they're going to click on the one that they want, and this window, this book an appointment window pops up. And it's going to default to their username. So whoever's clicked on that, whatever they've signed up their name and Gmail is what's going to fill in here. For the what, they can change this name, so they don't have to keep it as technology help, but that's just whatever you scheduled your name, your title, is what goes in as the default, and then it puts their name in parentheses. So they can just leave this be and not really do anything and just hit save and get the appointment slot. Sometimes people add information and say, hey, this is what I want to meet about. And that can be helpful because then the person that's going to have the meeting with you is prepared. So those are the things that you can change, and then you'd hit the save button. Okay. Now we're going to talk about settings, and we're just going to talk about a couple of them. So there's more settings, but we'll just talk about some. And again, they use that gear icon to tell you that it's a setting. So you're going to click on the gear, and then you can see you're in the settings tab because it's going to say settings right here. And then the one that a couple of them that I like to use. So you can click and play and sort of see what you want for the different options. The main things that I do is events from Gmail. So I automatically have it add the events from Gmail to my calendar, and it's only visible to me. So if I get an email that says, I signed up for something and there's a date that comes through, it's going to pop it into my calendar. And I like that. So I have that set. So that's something that maybe you'd want to look into doing. The other thing that is here, if you scroll down a little bit more, you're going to get this section that says settings for my calendars. And it's going to have the name of your default calendar, and then the calendar settings is where you're going to be. So if you scroll, I want you to look for the section that says access permissions. And so for this one, I like to have my calendar visible, but only that you can see if I'm free or busy. So I don't want to show all the details. I remember once before someone said like, oh, they could tell that someone was going for whatever particular doctor's appointment. I don't want anyone to see if I'm not in the office or if I'm meeting with someone. I don't want people to see who I'm meeting with, or I don't want to give that level of detail. But I don't mind you looking to see like, geez, is Beth free at this point in time? I'd like to schedule something. So I keep mine open. And so this is how you can do that. I make it available only to people in Sandwich. So there is this option to make it available to the public so that everyone can like search my calendar and find it. No, I don't want to do that. But I don't mind making it within our organization that people can sort of look to see when I'm free if they're trying to schedule a meeting. Sometimes that can be helpful. And then I like to have the calendar information through the other app. So I have those two features on. The next thing that I keep is I can set my notifications. So I have it 10 minutes before an event is going to start that I sort of just get the message across my screen. So I have that set. You can have email notifications. I also do have, I get an email report every morning that says sort of what my schedule is for the day, and I find that helpful too. So here I am in my Google Calendar, and I don't have anything scheduled, so I don't have any appointments because I thought we were going to be back in school. So none of the appointments are here, and I'm going to add them in. So I can click from the Create button, as we said, or if I want, I can just click in here and drag where I want it to go. And I never drag exactly correctly, so I always get the times wrong, so that's okay. I'm going to do my title first. I'm just going to call it Tech Help for now. And the date I have right, I wanted it to be 9 o'clock though, and I want it to end at 2, so I can adjust that. I'm making sure that that's AM and that goes to PM, so that's correct. I don't want to add any guests. I don't want to add the video meets. Oh, because I need to make this appointment slots. So before, do you notice as soon as I got that I could make Google Meets, then I knew that I hadn't gone to appointment slots, because you can't add the Google Meets automatically to appointment slots. You have to go back in afterwards. So this is where you set, so the default is 30 minutes, but you can make it go smaller, you can make it go higher, however many you want. I like 30 minutes is how I do it. And then I'm just going to click save. Oh, actually, I'm not going to, because I'm going to click more options because I want this to be repeating. So right now it's not repeating, and I actually want mine. I'm going to go to custom, and the reason I go to custom is because I like to have when the ending date is. So mine is going to end at the end of school, and I'm actually going to make mine go every Monday through Friday. So I tend to have like my whole day worth of appointment slots that people can book. So I'm going to hit done here. And then it's going to go, it's going to, it just goes for a single day, but then it's going to repeat on weekdays until June 16th. So that sounds good to me. And I'm going to click save. So now all of a sudden I have all of these slots. Now I had some existing appointments before, so I'm going to need to make adjustments to certain days so that I don't have it happening during these slots, or I can just book the slot myself. And you can tell that these are appointment slots because it has that little grid that we talked about. So now I'm going to show what it looks like from the student side. Here we go. So these are all those new slots that I've just made. And I can see that, wow, these slots are the ones that, because this is my schedule. And so that's why I can see it, because I share my calendar with myself, but other people wouldn't be able to see. And so if I wanted to schedule something, so let's say I wanted to schedule a 9 o'clock appointment, I could click here, and the default, again, because it knows that it's me, but I can change the name. Let's say I was like, wow, calendar sounds so cool, I want to meet about that. I can put a description in here. I could say like I want to do appointment slots, whatever I want to do, and I'm going to hit save. And so I get to have the option of if I want to stay here or if I want to go to view my own personal calendar. I'm just going to stay for now. So this is what it would look like to someone else that was logging in, and they would see that there was nothing here. They wouldn't know what the appointment was for. And I'm going to go back up to my calendar. And so you can see right here that I could click on this and I could change the color. That was a right click. Sometimes I like to color code, like anything that has to do with my class, I'm putting in blue, and usually I put help stuff in green if I'm having individual appointments, and when I do office hours, I do them in purple. So I tend to color code my calendar. This right here, if I click on it, you can see that there's no way for me to meet, to do an online meet, and obviously I need to do that now. So when someone books an appointment with me, I have to go in and then I just add the conferencing. So I put that conferencing on and then I save it. And sometimes I send or sometimes I don't send. So this would just send the people an email saying like, hey, the time has changed. So that's what it would look like. The other thing to keep in mind is right here, this appointment page for the calendar, that's the link that you give to people so that they can book an appointment with you. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to see you working more with Calendar.